Yoram, when we look at your transition from Israel, where you grew up and you served in the military, and then became a citizen of the United States, have you noticed in the different cultures, not just those two, but other cultures, lying has different rules or different protocols from one to the next?
I did. And as you said, it's not necessarily just Israel versus U.S. Israel, for example, is considered a very direct culture. We say what we think, and there's a little less fear of the consequences. Here, the U.S., I don't know if you knew that 80% of the world's lawyers live here in the U.S.
80%?
80%. That was actually the topic of my first TED Talk. And one of the things that we do here is we're so afraid of telling what it is because we might get sued that we stick to what we want you to think. And I see that in multiple aspects of life.
So in other countries, and I know you've traveled a lot, in other countries, do you find that the dynamic is profoundly different or just slightly different, or what?
It's different, and it's different in both aspects. It's different in the willingness or avoidance of lying, but also on how we react to lying. For example, I remember having a Japanese client. This is when I was here in the U.S., and you couldn't lie to them because they would not accept that this is even a possibility. They would keep on drilling because you said in an email from 3 months and 3 days ago, you said that this, and now you're saying something slightly different. So there are differences, cultural differences in our willingness or avoidance of lying, but also on how we react to it.
Well, I want to go back to you because you did a study of a town in Romania.
Yes, it wasn't my study, but it's a study that we covered in our book.
Tell us about it.
Well, so there's this small village in Romania, and it's really a remarkable village, and it's been studied quite a bit by anthropologists. And the reason is that there is so little trust between the inhabitants of this village that all of society operates a little differently than what we're accustomed with in the United States. And it's to the point that everybody has a small select handful of people they're willing to trust, and everyone else is seen as a danger or a threat or someone who might try and take advantage of them. And it's such a problem that in one case, two people were inhabiting a building and they distrusted each other so much that they took the building apart and created two smaller buildings. They're unwilling to trust someone enough to share a building space with them.
It seems if we were to take this personally, it would be scary to go out every day for fear that everybody's lying to you. And you develop sort of a cynical mindset, not just skeptical, but beyond that to cynicism, and think, well, I can't trust anybody. What do you say about that?
Well, I think to operate as a society, we're essentially cooperating. We're collaborating. It's almost impossible for us to even survive if we're operating on our own. So we have to make ourselves vulnerable. We have to place trust in people. And to Yoram's point, what's important is, and what varies, is how many people we can trust. I think, fortunately for most of us, we've identified a large number of people we can trust. And we trust them initially because we have what we call a truth default. We assume most people are being honest with us unless they show us otherwise. But in some contexts, people are a little bit more adversarial. For example, if you're trying to sell me a car, we have different interests. You want to sell the car for as much as you can. I want to pay as little as I can. And so when we find that we're at odds with each other, then we start to be a little more distrustful.